Hey, everybody, welcome to the Standing Stone Podcast. We are here for another episode. And folks, it is August, at least by the time this comes out in a couple days. It is August and it is hot for one, but two, it also means that it is time for preseason prep. And if you already think, it's still the middle of summer, we're not ready to start training and preparing for hunting season yet, you're wrong. This is the time that you need to be going. Ethan's brutally honest comment right there in the intro. This is the time that you need to be preparing your dogs and yourself for the upcoming season. If you plan to hunt and your dog's not to blow pads and wear themselves out on day one, this is important. We're going to be going over kind of our breakdown on the next 4 months, basically August, September, October, and November, and what that looks like, and kind of how we can evaluate young dogs versus old dogs versus where we're going and why we do different things. So today, Charles with me again here to talk, as he is a huge part of our guiding program, as well as some of the really important stuff that's going on in September. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
It's basically our show anymore.
Yeah, it's slightly cooler up here than outside. So,
oh God, it's been miserable. First and foremost, we are in the upper 90s. Feels like over 100. The boys are like, "Can we do a campfire?" I'm like, "Y'all, it's 103 degrees outside. We do not need to sit around a hotter device."
I looked at the weather this week, and I think it was going to be between 104 and 106 in the afternoon, which means mornings are rough.
Yes, it's not even cooling down. So a couple things just to start. We have already made the transition here at the kennel. It happens every summer. We move to a 5 a.m. start, and everybody looks at me like,
because it means 3:30 wake up.
Yes, it's miserable. And I know there are lots of people that have early mornings and all those things, but it still doesn't change the fact that that's early in the morning and it's hard. But you come out to get everything prepared and be ready to basically run anything that's field related or conditioning related or what have you at daybreak.
Right. Or even some of it in the dark still.
Some of it in the dark, roading if we can get that done.
Yeah.
The things that I hear on a regular basis helping folks is that's not always possible. Not always possible from what is available from a work life standpoint, have kids, have this, that, and another thing. But then the other, and I heard this just today, because they don't always know these things. We have our own ground and we can do kind of whatever we want within reason. It's primarily training on dog training areas, which in Texas, I believe, or this public area that is available, you can't be on it before 8 a.m.
Oh, I've heard of dates. I've never heard of a time.
I had not heard of a time either. So I don't know if that was just that specific area because it's near a city
or
gunfire
or something.
Don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is that if you are having issues, folks, we can help get creative with you. And actually I had a phone call with this gentleman that we walked through, and I, through our network and connection, hooked him up with somebody that was close enough that he can get onto from a private ground standpoint and be able to have someone to train with. So all of that being said, before we really jump into this, I want to make sure and mention, if you have a dog and you're trying to train it yourself, we have several resources out there. This podcast, we talk a lot about things that are relevant to the specific time of year, or that's our goal. And then also we have an online training course. It's available at standingstonekennels.com. We have a versatile dog course. We have a retriever flusher course. And now we have a brand new obedience only course for the folks that do have just short hairs or any kind of dog that's family, companion, not hunting dog related. You can check that out. It takes you from 8 weeks to 12 months and has the ability to not only teach the obedience side of things, but gives some opportunities for jobs, which all dogs need, through different things, outlets like retrieving and such. So that coupled with patreon.com/Standing Stone Kennels is supplemental again to the process. You can ask questions on the daily. I can help give you feedback. Some people still struggle with the pricing structure that we have up there, but it is $15 per month to ask me as many questions as you want via text. If your problem gets to the point where we go, or your situation, your question is more than that, then we move up in tiers, moving up to the $35 a month tier. You can send me videos of your training sessions every single day and I will review them. So I feel like it's a pretty good bang for the buck. If you need help to do all of this training yourself at home, which we strongly recommend, folks. We do have a full training program here for dogs to come in and be boarded and trained at the same time. But that fills up relatively quickly. I think we have a few spots coming into the fall. But if you're trying to do it yourself and have that, total package of being able to build the bond and do the training and that satisfaction of completing the entire process, like a lot of us started with, these resources that we have through our course and Patreon and live calls that you get a discount link in the course itself for are the best way for us to be able to assist you outside of the YouTube videos themselves. So now that we've got that mouthful out, it's August. What are we doing right now is the biggest thing that I want to talk about. Roading.
Yep.
Okay. I want you to walk through, and because we put out several videos, you can check them out if you want to see preseason conditioning or roading. To just show, I'll ask you a question and then not let you answer it.
That's all right.
If you search Standing Stone Kennels, or if you go to our channel here on YouTube, you can search right here, roading. YouTube is a search engine. Right here, we show multiple different videos or podcasts, and then it does jump into some things that aren't quite as directly related, but it does pull its best. How to teach dogs to road. Okay, so if you're interested in that process, you can check it out. Anything you have questions about, you can go right up here to the top and you want to watch our videos, Standing Stone Kennels, and then again, roading. It will show, minus the advertisement. Hank, how are you? It shows some of the different pieces that go in there, as well as other videos that pop up. But if you want to see our videos, you can search Standing Stone Kennels, and it does bring up a lot of them. Charles, what is roading? What does that mean to you?
It is controlling how the dogs are running, their pace, their speed, and what surface they're on, basically. So specifically, there are multiple ways that people use roading. The way that we use it and we found it to be the best for us is we use it for pad conditioning. I kind of cheated it a little bit, and I have been using it for some heat stuff for my invitational dogs, but mostly it's there for pad conditioning. We run them on the gravel driveway, 1-inch rock, basically, and it gets their feet toughened up for hunting season. And it is doing some conditioning. You can play with the timing. We talked about doing it in the dark when it'd be 70, 75, somewhere in there, or I can push it back a little bit until it's in the higher 70s, low 80s, and that can kind of get into heat a little bit, where I have more control of them because they are in a harness hooked up to, we use a 4-wheeler. And so there's a little bit more control over where they are. And secondary, then they also stay out of the bad grass. So we kind of use it in a lot of different ways, but our main focus with it is pad conditioning.
Absolutely. And the driveway that we have does have that 3/4 to 1-inch rock, and then also a mixture of sand and different finers there. It's basically the equivalent of any type of gravel road. Now, I know not everybody has access to a gravel road. Especially, I wouldn't just pick a county road and start running your dogs up and down. If you were to do that with them, if you're running on the road and they're on leash, that would be similarly equivalent, but it will take, it's obviously going to take longer than what I can't run as fast as we road dogs.
Right.
So, the other side of it that you mentioned is very important, is this is the peak of the mean seed season
For us. Yeah.
Yeah. And it changes based on where you're at. I think it's a little bit behind the further north you go, just like everything crops wise. When I was up there, looking like some of the corn when I was up in South Dakota was not even knee high, and the corn here is overhead. Right. So and that was a few weeks ago. But it's one of those things that this is the most dangerous time to do a lot of big running.
Yep.
Our training fields are very clean, but all of that being said, when we do free runs, we move out of the 40 acres or 80 acres of the main training field, and we move into like a bigger push to try and get 30 or 40 or 50 minutes, maybe an hour if we could, depending on the actual temperatures and things like that.
And we run them with OutFox masks, but they're still, this is just the worst time risk wise of them getting one in their paw or getting one, stuck into their side that migrates in, so it's just not really worth it right now. We have other ways of being able to condition them. And so that's what we're focusing on right now, rather than risking it.
You just mentioned the OutFox masks, and that's something that we found.
There you go, right there.
Not too terribly long ago, but it is we jokingly refer to them as hostage mask, but I'm guessing it's a textiline type poly mesh product, but it, they can breathe and they can see through it, but it keeps a huge majority of seeds out. I'm sure that there's potential for really small ones on occasion to make it, but I mean, exponentially small.
Yeah, especially from inhaling.
Yes.
But there's still the risk of between their feet, especially on right now, the cockers are kind of on the ixnay, do not run, because they have such tight, furry feet that they just get covered in them right now. And so it's really hard to even with masks on, you almost can't run them in the grass. So
yeah, there's cheatgrass and rye are some of the bigger ones.
The main two we have. Yeah.
And then in some areas you'll see foxtail. We also have had issues in the past with Indian grass, which doesn't fall into the big on mean seed area, but it can just be so much that we've talked about this before, but it's cattail like poof explosion if anybody's ever experienced that. So
yep.
The month of August, basically, we put a huge emphasis on roading, a little bit of conditioning, and a lot more pad conditioning.
Yep. Get their pads set so when it is time to, and the mean seeds are gone and we get a little bit cooler, they're ready to roll, and I don't have to worry about somebody getting sidelined early on in the conditioning process. And now mid to end of August, when they got 2 weeks before they really got to hit it, all of a sudden now they've blown a pad. So I was just going to say, you're going to bring up the next part of roading.
Yeah. So with the roading process, every day, basically, then the dogs get their pads sprayed with Pad Tough.
Yep.
It is a combination of a drying and toughening product. You just do a couple, 2 or 3 sprays. A lot of people have mentioned things like, my dog's pads seem really hard or scratchy or whatever. I'm like, can we put lotion on them or whatever?
No.
Please do not, for the sake of them. You have to think about it a lot like soft baby hands that go to take the rake or the shovel and work for the day.
Yeah.
You get blisters, and blisters hurt and take a long time to heal and go away. Blown pads are essentially that.
Yeah. It doesn't always mean too that the part of the pad that you're saying is rough is not necessarily always what comes off. Sometimes it is that, but sometimes it can be on the upper edge of that. Is kind of more why we like the rock and the softer stuff to run on, like sand. Sand can do it as well. It kind of works their feet differently, but it can also help with that. And that's more of why we stay on rock and stuff. And it's also, you can't asphalt's too hot, too hard on the very bottom of their pad. You'll just rip their pads off if you try it on asphalt or concrete. I mean, you maybe could eventually, but I would never want to start with that at all, because it'd be hard on them.
And I know that'll be a question is, can we do this on concrete or asphalt? And I mean, you can, but you're going to be running the risk of the heat factor.
Heat will be big on asphalt. But I think just abrasiveness too. So for instance, Timber, when I was getting her ready for the Invitational, the first dog I took there, we did a lot of her pad conditioning on concrete because we were in town and I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I used a bicycle. But we did super short. I mean, we built it up over 3 months to probably get, I don't know, half mile in, and that was plenty. That's all she needed, and I never had any more than that because it's just too hard. And that was a mix of kind of the grass and the sidewalk, so it's just too hard on them. I haven't found it to a way to make it work anyway.
No, and if you were just walking, it's probably fine. But at the same time, I would say a lot of people have probably experienced or been around, if you don't have children, or have nieces or nephews or, whatever. You've seen small children be bottle fed and everybody always squirts some on their wrist, right? That's a more sensitive area to make sure that the milk's not too hot. Well, I've seen people like put their hand on the concrete. Well, even that can be tougher, especially because it's only for a short period of time. Put your forearm on the concrete and see, can you leave it there for an extended period of time? If the answer to that is no, your dogs probably should not be walking on it either, because they can get burns. And again, that will cause blisters and that will cause more issues. And like I say, pads being blown takes a very long time to heal.
Yeah, very long time.
It's like weeks.
I'm not being able to. I mean, if you try to do anything else with them, you just extend it too. It doesn't. There's only one way to fix it, and that's to not use it.
Do nothing. Yeah. So we are roading dogs, and we are doing just the driveway. It makes it easier from we don't have to worry about traffic side of things, as well as it's a perfect loop of up and down, and it's just shy of a mile. If you include the circle on the front end and the back end, I think you can make it a mile, but it's just shy of a mile. It is not designed to build conditioning from a lung standpoint.
Not endurance at all. No. It's not an endurance thing.
The next side of it is not designed to be pulling either, which would also help build endurance. We use a traditional roading style harness, and those aren't optimal if you are trying to do pulling stuff either, because they can tend to, if the dog is trying to pull, it can restrict shoulder movement. And if you're doing extended periods of that, you can imagine doing half movements of your arms for lots and lots and lots of times. It's going to tighten things up and shorten ligaments and stuff, which would potentially cause long-term issues or a greater chance of things like that tendon now tearing later because it's been shortened so much.
Yeah, we don't try to let them stride out when we're roading. It's not the goal is to let them be trying to full stride.
No,
we have harnesses that work for that, and
Correct.
we could, like, we use them on the slat mill, and we have roaded with them before, but that's not the goal of what we're doing.
No, and we've gone back and forth with that. It trades. They get tangled really bad
because they have to be like long, and the way that they pull is clear off of their back because it's using along their sides, and it doesn't really gain that much. They can only do it for so long, and pulling that hard against a 4-wheeler at 14 miles an hour, they just can't do it. It just doesn't. There's not enough of a benefit to keep doing it. It's just easier to use the roading to get their feet right, and then once their feet are right, to then use the just free running. And that way, if conditioning with mixing, we have slat mills and treadmills and stuff too we can work on too. But
now I would say that we'll stay on this topic for just a second. We do use X-back harnesses, what they're called. We use those a ton for the slat mills because they are pulling. They're running and digging and pulling as hard as they can.
And they're striding out completely. They are full on running as fast as they can go. I mean, what's the heck? Like, according to the little thing, like 23 miles an hour. I mean, he's like hauling
butt. Yeah.
So they need to have a full range of motion and in a harness that is designed for pulling. So
the slat mills, for anybody that doesn't know, it's a dog-powered treadmill, and they're a little bit expensive. To get a good one, they're probably close to $2,000-$3,000.
Mm-hmm.
They're big. They don't fold up. They take up a lot of space. They're very noisy. Even with the upgraded like rubber wheels versus hard plastic wheels, that cut the noise down a lot.
Yeah, but I would still wear earplugs if I was in any kind of small space.
Yes.
They're loud.
They are loud. So, but the dogs love them, and it is a really good way to exercise in the miserable cold and the miserable heat, both. So we utilize that some. Dogs get rotated through, and they can be done in conjunction of like a video that we just have putting out. We're talking about more advanced obedience from a sense of being able to utilize multiple dogs. You can run a dog on the slat mill, and you can have 2 or 3 dogs sitting on dog beds waiting their turn, and then swap them, and everybody gets a little bit of some quote unquote passive obedience, if you will, but at the same time, the exercise and rotate dogs through.
And
so
it mentally works them a little bit too.
Absolutely. So all of that being said, August is roading month, and the dogs go, generally speaking, 3 to 4 days a week to start, and then work up to 5 to 6 days a week if possible. Roading basically every single day, and it's short. It's a quick loop. It takes less than, I don't know.
It depends on the group. I have some groups that rip at the beginning, and in order to stop them from, there's like a balance between letting them full straight out and then trying to pull. And so some like you get Splash and Thunder and a couple of those dogs on there, and
you got to kind of run. You got to
kind of go a little bit to stop them from pulling so hard, because they will drag the 4-wheeler like while it's sitting still. And this 4-wheeler like has an engine brake. It's insane how hard side note, Yahtzee, Thunder, Shock, and Muddy can drag the 4-wheeler, can just pull it. It's like, holy cow.
Wait for me.
Yeah, they are strong. So those dogs take a little less time, because also where we turn in the driveway, they know the routine. They get down there, they do the turn, and they're like, let's go. And they get all fired back up again. So the little bit there, maybe for 150, 200 feet at the other end of the driveway, they're back to like full power before you kind of let them ease back into that good trot, pace. Yeah, good trot. Yeah.
So a couple things with this before we get out of our month of August is age aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
We don't road young dogs. Now, what is a young dog? Generally speaking, I'm going to say on average, under 12 months, we're going to stay away from the roading category for the most part. There would be a couple dogs, and because we're not doing a lot of pulling with it, I am still going to road our younger dogs because the pad toughening portion of it is so beneficial, but we do have to watch it a lot more than we do with the older dogs because their bodies aren't fully developed yet. And it's like overloading teenagers in the weight room and saying, now try and grow correctly.
Yeah. And we specifically, because we have so many dogs, I can just pair them up. I can put, like Quinn's first roading experience was not that crew that can drag the 4-wheeler down. It was a very mild crew that just
trotting,
happy to go along.
It's controlled walking.
But it's also enough to keep her like, oh, this is fun. To get them started, sometimes it can, got to get interesting. But for us, we're lucky we have a lot of dogs that really like to road. And so it's easy. 3 good dogs, 1 puppy. And the puppy goes, oh, this is fun. And so we can start a little earlier. But I won't. Like Quinn just started, and she's just over a year.
Yeah.
So she had her first 2 weeks ago. She got her first roading experience. So,
and generally speaking, I will bring young dogs hunting this season. And you know what? If they blow a pad, they blow a pad. They're there for them, not so much for me. The big dogs, I need them.
Right.
And so they've got to be ready. The puppies can run and take a break, and if they do something, which generally they self-regulate a little bit better than some of the bigger dogs, and not always, but generally speaking, they do. So we are in the month of August. We are roading. And it's four pads. That is the key takeaway. So running them on the rocks and gravel if you can find it. Concrete is okay if it's not too hot and you cut down the amount of time and distance, and then every single day spraying pads with Pad Tough.
Yep.
So it's one thing that, like, if you've got one dog, 2 bottles are going to probably last you all that you need. And then the other side is if you do end up with a cut or any kind of pad injury, you can spray the same product on to help keep it clean and work it past that.
It definitely has alcohol in it because it will get all over your hands, and I find every cut every time
yeah.
Every time I spray dogs' feet, I'm like,
I think it's mostly alcohol with some
oils, and it smells kind of good.
Yeah, it has a unique smell, which
Very.
I believe is the isopropyl alcohol is the #1 ingredient distilled, and then it's the comfrey extract, I believe, is the unique smell. But that is it. And for young dogs, that's it. So people a lot of times I know are concerned at this point going into hunting season with, I need to make sure that my dog is ready. And again, another gentleman that I did a live call with just today I went over. He's like, well, I'm getting nervous. Season's upcoming. I don't feel like we're ready. Like, your dog has pointed some stuff.
Yep.
It comes when you call it.
Yep.
You've shot around it and it's been around birds. Like, you are above the bar for ready to go hunting.
Yeah.
We have to have reasonable expectations. So when people say I'm nervous about this upcoming season or things like that, I always say, like, hey, remember, this is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Remember, this is supposed to be fun. So when we have any of the puppies, and I take young dogs, probably the youngest I've ever, probably around 6 months old, maybe 7-ish, as the young end of the guide string dogs, and maybe even a little younger. Like, I feel like Muddy was maybe 5 months old.
I took Mako, and she was just over 4. I actually went to leave, and we were getting ready to go, and I was like, I'm taking her. Like 2 days before we're gonna leave, I'm gonna take her. And Annie said, bird gun introduction, any of that? And I was like, oh yeah,
maybe you should do something.
I went out and did that real quick, and anyway, she was very, very young. No expectations though. Just run around on the ground and be a puppy. And
well, and I've taken, so if I'm going hunting by
that's
myself,
personal.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's
if
different.
I'm going hunting by myself, we've even brought, I know Splash came and hunted when she was like this big.
Right.
12 weeks, I think, maybe 4 months old.
Had a recall bird and gun intro.
Yes, that's it. And the expectation was that we don't lose her during the process. That's it.
Yeah.
And if she does something cool, and she actually pointed a bird.
Yeah,
and
same with Mako. Ended up pointing
brought
her in on another dog point. She didn't find anything. She was tiny, but
I think Splash found it
probably did
because
she's
Splash. But it was just this little cattail pocket that I did lose her for a second. I had to go back to find her, and she's like hunting around in these cattails, no care in the world that we're not there with her. And then she locks up on point. I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of birds just came out here. And then here comes a bird, and I don't remember if it was a rooster or a hen or whatever, but she didn't. I mean, she's so small, she couldn't even see it come out.
Right. She didn't know
so
what happened.
I can't shoot it for her.
Yeah,
any of those situations, like
looking around.
So all of that being said, the exposure is way more important than any amount of training that you can do out of wild bird situations. So
just the travel. I mean, there's so many things that they learn. How to travel, how to eat on the road, how to do, go pee at a gas station. There's a lot of stuff that you go, oh, they're, we're ready to roll. And then you realize that a lot of stuff for them is going to be new on their first trip, especially if it's an out of town trip.
Absolutely.
So good for them.
The more you take them along and expose them to what life will be as they mature, the better off they're going to be. It's experience that can't be replicated.
Right.
So you've got to include them. Now, that's a big part of our August. I know we have a handful of young dogs that are coming up. Most of my string this year kind of hit a gap zone that they're all in the older-ish stage where they weren't quite ready, because we're in an odd situation right now too, is we do have quite a few dogs that are developing primarily developing for the El Tesoro program.
Yep.
So had a bunch of young dogs last year that were right around that 8 months to year and a half category, which cut out having room for some of those 4-month-olders to get to tag along.
Right.
So now those 4-month-olders are coming into that 8 to 10 month range, and we don't end up with as much zone until late season stuff. Like I took Quinn as a little baby, and some of those dogs do get to come along later season. But from a guiding standpoint, they do have to have just a smidgen more than what I'm saying is the minimum required here.
Yeah.
A little better handle. We've got heeling being a bigger factor, so that I can make sure that they can behave on leash and around the truck, especially where a good portion of where we park and stop is near-ish to a road.
Yeah.
And then typically speaking,
the most dangerous thing for a hunting dog,
the road,
is a road.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's it. Period. People worry about gunfire, worry about all that stuff. Road, way more dangerous. Yeah. The most dangerous thing.
And some of the spots that we hunt are right along, used to be right along the highway. And and inevitably people bring their own dogs to come hunt with us. And I love that. But it's like this strip right here, nobody gets to run a dog. And they're like, well, why? I'm like, because it's right next to the road. You guys are lined out. If you're on this side of the shelter belt, you can't see what's going on. I'm
so scary.
Can go back and forth, and I run 1 or 2 dogs, one old dog and maybe a youngish dog. And, so it's, and
South Dakota highway, 2 lanes, 70 mile an hour.
Every time a bird gets shot, rolling and dumps across the highway, and I've got to run and stop dogs and whatever else. And I can do that. When there were a lot of times it was somebody else's dog, and I'm like running to try and catch this dog because people are fumbling with transmitters, or the dog's recall is probably not as good as they would hoped it had been. And so, we've got a collection of young dogs coming up this year. I am going to pull down a couple of the older dogs. Splash is going to come hunt with me because we have, again, the next generation moving up to where those dogs we've been preparing for the ranch. But we have the young dogs right now. Where are they at with finishing out training coming up for September, which is when I will actually start with them?
So for your string, right, you're going to have, you have just a few most of them are ready. So trained retrieves are done. It's a thing that I generally try to have done for any dogs that are of age. Like if they're going to be close, like Quinn right now, we just talked about is on the table. And so she will be done with her trained retrieve. Healing will be done. Woe training is in process. She's kind of been a demonstration dog for seminars a little bit. So
yeah, so she's had like 2 or 3 sessions over the course of 2 or 3 months, but has a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it gets a lot done in a course of a weekend. So it's like, she's doing really, really well with it. So she doesn't need to be really worked that hard on it. She gets it that way. So everybody else, like Bet, we can go through all the dogs, but like Bet Duel, train retrieve done, Woe training done, healing done. That pair. Pocket is in the same group. I don't know that did she hunt with you last year? Yeah, she hunted a bunch with I know she has, but she, I believe, was natural. So had retrieve, natural retrieve, healing, and Woe training, and she had her trained retrieve done. So mostly those dogs have, pre getting this hot, we're just getting birds killed over them, making sure they were picking up birds, bringing them to hand, not setting them down with brace mates. That's another thing that we start working on, because you run 2 to 3 to 4 now with the new collar system. So lots of brace mate work. Don't steal your brace mate's bird. Don't spit it out and leave it and expect somebody else to pick it up.
It's a big issue. Pheasant hunting specifically is if birds get picked up and moved. I would rather a young dog that doesn't, needs a lot of work with retrieving, and they're just like, meh, for the time being, than a dog that picks it up and moves it. Because I do a pretty good job marking, and if we know where to look, we can find them. But if we move them, we don't know where we're looking anymore, and that can be frustrating. So
yeah. So Quinn's the only one that's really got not a lot to do, but she's the one that's got the most amount of work. The 2 young dogs, which would be the youngest, would be Mags and Riot. They are very natural retrievers, very natural pointing dogs, backing dogs. All of that stuff is very natural. So they're just working on healing. They're working on, getting all that stuff ready to go, so that will be very solid for them. So when it comes time that you're not dragging your arm out of the socket when you're trying to get them out of the truck and get them to the field safely. So you have a pretty good mix of like the 1.5 to 2-year-old that had some experience, and now they have all of their like training, trained retrieve done. Everything's done. They just need another year to learn how to hunt wild birds and do really good. And you're going to have a good group of experienced dogs that are done that you could probably ask to, if you really got on them, they would probably stay in steady wing shot fall. Although I don't know if Splash on a running bird is going to give that to you, but, and then you'll have 2 to 3 puppies that this is going to be their very first season. So you'll have a very, very good mix of balance. And then I would assume at some point, little tiny Jinx will join you somewhere, whether that's probably not South Dakota, probably just Texas.
Yeah, she'll come down on a Texas trip to travel and do things, but then she'll probably get to hunt late season, December, January with me somewhere.
So, and she'll be in the same ballpark like where Quinn was last year. We're just recall, and we won't lose you, but we don't expect anything out of you either.
And then I know we've got Lark as well.
Lark, she's still being raised, so I sometimes forget about Lark. She's going to be
Tessa's
in that same.
Doing it.
Yeah, Tessa's doing a great job with her, and she'll be in the same boat as Mags, and she'll probably have WOA training done. Mags will probably have WOA training done. Right? They all should be able to have WOA training done, no problem. But they won't have a trained retrieve. Is be the big difference. That's kind of the line where they'll have a natural retrieve, and then we'll kill a bunch of birds over them, and you'll get to see what they. I mean, they all retrieve, so you should be good. It's a good crop of natural retrieving puppies.
I like it. So we moved through September. You've got one thing that you're primarily preparing for, and what is that going to look like different? That's the invitational. You have Shock and Splash and Doc.
Yep.
All running this year. They are roading, but they're also needing to do something else, which is acclimation. They need to prepare for the heat.
There's a solid chance that they will run an hour in the field while it is 95. I mean, if I can stay under 90 while I'm there in Iowa, I would be grateful for that. So it will be hot. I mean, I don't know when they're going to run. You don't know. You just know what day. They could run at 3:00 in the afternoon, the absolute heat of the day, and it could easily be 95 plus. So they started those three specifically started roading sooner so that their feet were a little more better prepared because I'm going to have to ask them to do quite a bit of running sooner than I would normally for Texas, specifically for those dogs. I have a little more time. You have September grouse, so your puppies get free run a little sooner. They're kind of at the front of the list. So I've also been pushing their roading sessions back a little bit, so they're kind of on the back end of the groups, so that they are in a much more of the heat, just in the heat. And then I also have been just walking them, so to adjust their pace a little bit, so that they aren't. So if most of the time when we free run, we do it from a 4-wheeler. It just saves us. We have a whole bunch of dogs to do, saves time, but it can push them a little bit more than I want them to right now with the heat. So their conditioning for heat involves roading later in the day. And by that, I mean, it's still hot, but not hot. And then on days that they don't road, they're going on walks. So OutFox Masks, mile, that same loop. I keep them on the driveway, they can go off and hunt in the grass and do whatever, but it's very much a more controlled pace as I build up their ability for heat tolerance. That's the big thing, is that they need to be able to handle the heat. And I know they all can, because we do the same process for Texas. I'm just moving it up a little bit for the invitational.
Yeah. First and foremost, 90 degrees is ridiculous,
yeah.
But what are some tips that you can provide for people that kind of have to run in this, which would be this testing? I mean, I'm telling you right now, if we were hunting, I would say
we're done.
Yeah. And it's because that event specifically happens once a year. You have to you can't go, oh, well, we're done, and all of these dogs don't get to run. You have to run.
And sometimes it's 60 degrees
reasonable.
And you're like, this is awesome. It's perfect. It's just Iowa in September. You don't know for sure. Know. So the big thing is just slowly building them up. It's an hour in the field, but you're going to have time at water tubs. There's going to be time where they're standing birds. They're standing while they're backing. So it kind of slows down a little bit, and there's not as much time full on running. And there is water tubs. So there's a lot of water. The water's refreshed often. The judges are always
refreshed, meaning keeping it cool.
Yeah. Either ice or just bringing out they bring it out in, they have clear barrels. They'll fill them up, and they'll just swap the water out between runs, to make sure that it's cool coming out of the ground, because it's all well water out there. Then the judges are not going to let a dog go down. I mean, they're going to do everything in their power to stop that by getting you to water tubs, finding shade. Almost everybody there, when you go to a water tub, will kind of like stand around the dog and create shade, so that the dog is not just sitting in the sun while it's laying there in the water tub. So that will help too. But the main thing it comes down to is they just have to be conditioned. They have to know themselves how to pace themselves and how to work in the heat. And the only way to really do that is to get them in the heat. And then it's on us to make sure that we're protecting them and that we're not being unreasonable. I have turned around, my main goal is to walk that mile, half mile down, half mile back, but I have gotten halfway down and said, nope, it's too hot there. I don't like the signs of what I'm seeing, how much of their tongue is hanging out of their head. Did Doc go from cruising in the field to now he's just walking at heel? Like that's not normal. So he's probably getting too warm. So just building that up and paying attention to the dogs as you do it, because you can get them too hot. Even in high 70s, low 80s, they can get too hot.
Yeah. And from a grouse hunting side of things, which is what we do in South Dakota, the temperatures can be very similar. I mean, we can have days that are in the 90s plus, and we don't have refreshed water tubs every 10 or 15 minutes. So we carry as much water as we can, and you make a loop. And sometimes, when it's that hot, just from a hunting tip side of thing, hunting around water is a good rule of thumb.
For you,
generally speaking,
and the birds.
Yes, for the birds and the dogs and everybody. But if you can work out to a small pond and then relax till everybody's cooled off and then work back, generally you're going to be okay. But ultimately, we just cut it off. We hunt in the morning, and then when it gets too hot and it hits that 80 plus category, generally speaking, we're pretty much done.
And for the test itself, I will have a ridiculous amount of water on me. I don't have to worry about carrying any shells. I don't have to worry about carrying birds. But even grouse hunting, I'm very similar. Probably, I think when I go to North Dakota, I'll routinely have 5 liters of water on me just to make sure. I mean, I would rather drag along way too much water. I carry the Yeti plastic bottles. I have 1.5 liter bottles, and I'll fill my bag up with them. And basically anytime I see a dog, if its ears aren't wet, I make them wet.
Yeah.
So that's how I'll get through the test. And especially like if you're coming back, like you're on a grouse trip, you take a loop, you hit some water and you're trying to get back, and you end up kind of taking too wide of a circle back, which happens very easily. And next thing you know, you're a little farther away than you need to be. Having that water will save you. I mean, it's big for both of you, for you and the dog. But anytime that their ears aren't wet, I'm getting them wet again.
Yeah, that evaporative cooling aspect of thing is huge. I think it's water is 70% more thermogenic than air. I don't know.
It's something crazy.
It's crazy.
It helps.
But
you can see a change in the dogs. But that's also another important part of the heat. When all of this conditioning, all of it is reading the dog and seeing the signs of them being hot. And if you're conditioning for hunting or for a test or for something going on, also you need to see those signs to know that it's working. If you do the same loop every time and you're not paying any attention at all, you need to know like, oh, I did this loop and now they're like half panting. They're handling this much better. Now maybe it's time to push them a little bit further. So there's multiple reasons to pay attention to things like how much of their tongue is hanging out of their head. How is it just hanging to the side uncontrollably? Because that's a bad sign, because they're trying to use that tongue to pull air in. And if it's just hanging off the side and they're not using it at all, and they're just straight breathing as hard as they can, then they are in bad shape.
Yeah,
they use that tongue they want to keep that tongue hanging out of the front of their mouth because it helps to draw air in and cool them off. So
you look down a dog's throat and you can see that black hole. Oh, yeah. You've screwed
tongues
up.
to the side and all you can see is a black hole. It's time to take a break, find some shade, get them cooled down, or be done if you can. But if you can't, don't push them another 10 minutes. It's not worth it.
No, and that doesn't sound like much time, but it's
it can be less.
If you like, it's a good thing to have a leash or two with you to clip that dog up that has overdone it, so that you can stop that, if at all possible. Because most of our dogs have enough heart that they're gonna not advocate for themselves well. So
Splash and Shock are a prime example of they will go until it's too much. You have to stop them.
So to fact check myself, water conducts heat away, so it's more thermogenic, but water conducts heat away from the body about 25 times faster than air. So not 70%, whatever that number was.
Still 25 times faster.
Yeah, I don't know the percentages, but it's crazy.
Is that 250%?
Maybe. So you get math. Yeah. You get a dog that's too hot, And there's a lot of different thought processes behind what do you do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping them wet is huge, but I've heard things about don't get them in ice water. It will shock them and they will then go the opposite direction and whatever else. And then I actually I went on an event that was sponsored by Yukonuba, and they had their team that does search and rescue type stuff. They actually have it's pretty freaking cool. They have a big enclosed trailer that they have outfitted inside with power and a table for examinations and drink cooler for people. And it's people and dog related that they drag to any of these, some of them training events, but also primarily if there is a search and rescue type situation, they go out there to
floods
help.
in Texas. I can only imagine how.
I'm sure.
I mean, trying to keep those dogs cool down there then had to have been
correct
a nightmare.
So they've got, and then they also did some tests and different things of that nature around heat wise. And they said literally the best thing that you can do if you get a dog overheated is put them in any form of water, like a cooler with ice water. Like, doesn't matter. The dog is already too far gone, and the only chance that they have of not having severe damage to any part of their body is the water. So if you can get them to a pond, a river, if you have a cooler, yes, it would be shocky to their system, but they're already to that. If they tip over from heat exhaustion, they're already there. Now, granted, do you want to take a dog that's kind of warm, but obviously not tipped over and dunk them in a bucket of ice water? Probably not.
Yeah.
But same thing though goes if that dog were to stand in that ice water and just cool their feet. There's a lot of heat dispersion that happens there through the pads of their feet. So you could help to bring things down without completely submersing them in ice cold water. But if that's all you had, is what I'm saying. But ultimately, water being the fastest way to pull that heat out of the body.
And Evan was here for the seminar, and he basically said the same thing.
It's water.
Handled a lot of dogs, and a lot of long-haired dog shepherds and Malinois in Iraq and Afghanistan, and said the same thing. If it doesn't matter, they need to be cooled down now. That's the most important thing you can deal with. If you do go too far and you get them into shock, a little shocky or whatever, you can deal with that because they're going to be in a way better state than if they're too hot. He's the one that recommended ice sheets, so that's one of the things I try to keep with me too. Is just like a twin sheet that you just keep kind of folded up and in the cooler, and that way you don't have to dunk them in a whole bunch of water, but you can put that sheet over them and it cools them down a little bit more controlled.
Good idea.
Yeah, it works. I try to keep one in there in Texas just in case when we're out bird hunting. If something, some dog just pushes too hard when it's a little warmer, that it's kind of more of an emergency thing than it is I'm going to plan on using this. It is definitely an emergency thing, but something you can keep in mind.
A twin-sized bed sheet.
Just a cotton bed sheet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, a lot of great information about heat and dealing with that aspect of things. And some of the differences between, you got to run dogs in the heat, though they are getting cooled down on a regular basis. You're probably running 10 to 15 minute stints in that at the most, depending on finding birds and how close the tanks are.
Lays out, but
so keeping that in mind, that we're talking about times of running in the 10 to 15 minute windows. You're not going to go on a big 5-mile trek when it's 85, 90 degrees. And I've even been in some situations like that I was hunting with other people. And it was just one of those deals that we got too far away from the truck and I didn't know where we were going. I go on guided hunts on occasion or am dogs in an area I'm not familiar with. So we do have a local person that's pointing us like, oh, we need to go this way. Well, they don't have any idea what dogs are. And all of a sudden we are 5 miles straight lined away from the truck. And I go, what am I going to do now? So I just take dogs and they just walk by me. They aren't going to die if they're walking at heel. They're going to get hot, but not like they're continuing to try and push. So all of those things being said, keeping a close eye on the dogs. They all have big hearts. Don't give up on them. They are not quitting on you because they are wimps. If they're quitting, it's for a reason. Yeah. So listen to that. Now, as we come out of September, we move into, I hunt for you. You're getting, you finish the invitational. I guide for a few weeks. Then we've got a gap zone, and it's where like the couple weeks in October that I'm not pheasant hunting and I'm not grouse hunting. What do we do with the dogs? They do need a little rest and recuperation, but it's amazing how quickly those pads go soft.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, if I've got a hiccup, a few weeks is a good amount of time to fix some stuff. Like, this dog's struggling a little bit with woeing or something. Let's put some more emphasis into that. Or they kind of had a weird deal with picking birds up. And here, now that we're not actively chasing wild birds, I can stop and work through this. We'll work through a handful of those things, but at the same time, continuing that roading process and spraying pads. What are you going to be doing with the dogs, specifically going to Texas? I'm going to condition pads going for dogs going back to South Dakota, but it's the same as the grouse season. There's not a lot different. They've been up there. It's generally speaking, same type of terrain, same type of areas. It's not overly rocky. It's not bad. When you go south, it's different.
Yep. So continuing, they have to do a lot of roading. They have to have their feet ready because it's the ranch is in the released bird area isn't bad. They've cleaned it up quite a bit. It's more like finer sand, dirt with some little rocks mixed in. But we hit wild birds and you can be in straight rolling river rock type. Broken up rock, all kinds of really, really hard stuff. And then on top of that, all of the thorns and cactus and all of that stuff. So a lot of roading. They do a ton of roading, just continuing to keep their feet tough. Anybody that has any kind of feet issue at all, when you're spraying them, you can take a look at them. You can kind of tell who's having some sore feet. You'll see a little bit of pink and some things. Watching those dogs, making sure that we're not pushing them too hard, but that they're continuing to work. They may get an extra session or two if their feet are up for it. And then we're just going to continue to build tolerance and endurance with free runs. So it's much safer by then. Almost all the mean seeds have fallen off and blown away and they're gone. So we can continue to build on that because the grass does wear their feet. It for sure is hard on them. Look what it does to our boots and our pants, and it does the same thing to them. So continuing that with all the dogs.
It's interesting. I'm trying to think what year it would have been. I think Thunder wouldn't have even been alive yet. So it would have been Vex and Nix and maybe Muddy and Grid. I took a handful of dogs and we went, it was the year when crane hunting. So there's some hunting videos on YouTube about that, but we went and shot cranes in that kind of Lubbock area, not quite the panhandle, like the south side of the panhandle-ish, I think would be pretty accurate. But then we hunted blue quail.
Rocky.
It's rocky.
Mm-hmm.
So we went straight south of there, and it was a ways. I don't even know how far, but we're in West Texas, basically, hunting blue quail. And it was very rocky. And the guide specifically said, you're bringing dogs, make sure and bring boots. I'm like, I hate boots because boots don't stay on. Or if you get them on, then you've over-tightened them, and then dogs' feet are basically losing circulation.
And also, they're generally, the good boots are not breathable. And so you're losing a huge way for them to cool down.
On top of not breathable, they're generally fit to an individual dog's foot. So when you've got a trailer full of dogs, you have to have a good number of different sizes because like Nick's pads are huge.
Yeah.
Rex's pads were giant. And then you've got some of the dogs that have little tiny pads that basically don't hold the boot on at all because it's nothing there.
The same as, their pad is the same as their leg. Yeah.
And I brought a dog that was something that had happened with an owner had passed or something terrible. And I bought this dog back. And I had her, I was like, I'll bring her down. We trained her. She's fully trained. She's a great dog. She might be a little rusty, but she'll be fine. And we go down and hunt. And literally the first morning, so all of my dogs have been roading. She had not. She'd been with me for like 3 days or 5 days. And I'm like, let's go have fun. She blew all 4 of her pads on the first run. And it was like an hour and a half little loop, and temperatures weren't bad at
Right.
all, but it was a pretty rocky area, and she completely blew him and she was done. She got to run for an hour and a half and she started getting sore and gimpy. I was like, oh my God, you have lost all of your pads.
What do you have stuck in your foot? Oh no,
Yeah.
it's just, that's the one that hurts the most right now.
Correct. So it was evident. And this was in an area that the guide's like, literally your dogs have to wear boots. None of my dogs wore boots. Yes, they had some small cuts, some small wear zones on some of the pads, but nothing that prevented them from continuing to run. I sprayed pads at the end of the day to kind of help keep them clean and make sure nothing happened. But, so literally the one dog, and I think that you saw the same thing. Maybe it was Piper came down and she hadn't been roading.
We had a group. I had it, would have been 2 years ago. I had a group that came in to Texas, and this was probably, the whole group actually ended up, it was just happened to be like, I was like, oh, this group's kind of all in the similar boat. And like, I think Trix had just was newer down there from puppies. There was just a group of dogs. I don't remember exactly. Piper, Trix. I don't think it was Quest. I can't remember exactly, but, it was getting them. It was more, I'd been roading them a little bit, but I needed more heat conditioning. So I was just free running them. And that was enough on a 4-wheeler because they push themselves a little harder on a 4-wheeler, even if you don't realize it. And they blew their pads, and they weren't really in the worst of the worst, but they were just pushing hard for 30 minutes. And it was enough that all of them had a pad blown somewhere on their feet. And it was that quick. And luckily, we were there. It's like, oh, stop. I'm roading them or free running them on a coil rig. So I have all kinds of boxes. The second I see somebody limping, stop, what's going on? We didn't run through an area that should have any thorns or briars or sandburrs or anything. Why are you limping?
Sounds basically impossible at
well,
the ranch,
it's kind of, I got a little path. I know where to go. And I'm like, you should not be limping. If you're limping, you're probably hurt. It's also because you're in the boat where you're not quite conditioned well enough. So seeing a couple dogs limping, you're like, whoa, what's going on? And then realizing that I had pads issue, it's like into the box. And with the pad tough, luckily, and it was just starting to be an issue. We were able to get it under control pretty quick. And then those dogs just roaded and as soon as their pads were healed, I think I roaded them for every day for 2 weeks straight before then I was like, okay, now we have some calluses kind of built up a little bit. They're a little tougher. Now I can start getting your heat conditioning better and being able to get you to run longer. Cause we do end up with some hunts down there in the high 70s, low 80s, and they're more than capable of doing it, especially because there's live, cool water in the fields.
Water tubs everywhere. Yeah.
And then even I can plan my wild bird hunts around tanks so that there is tanks available for them to get in, and they're all deep. So that's one thing I learned too in South Dakota and in Iowa is like you just because you're by water, if it's a marsh, doesn't mean it's going to help.
No.
So knowing like that it's a dugout stock tank, something that's got a little depth to it, kind of keep it cooler.
Now, granted, we talked about the water removing heat from your body so much faster than air. But if that water is 85 or 90 degrees, you basically fall into a category of it's barely enough to try and help cool them down. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't do enough.
Right.
Because the temperature is too close to the temperature of the dog itself. Now, if you're in 80 or below degree water, it's going to feel pretty cool, especially if they're warm. But there are times when those, especially like marshy or shallower areas, those things are probably 95 degrees.
Yeah, black bottom. They feel hotter almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we get dogs down mid-season, that's something that I learned was, I thought maybe going on a free run would be more of a, hey, you just kind of at your own pace, you won't. And it was like instantly just pop pads by doing that. So I learned that, School of Heart and Hawks, trying to rush to get them into the rotation. And I just need to take more time and let them get more roading done.
So, folks, that kind of works us through the next 4 months leading into November when we'll be both guiding, and then Charles continues on for the rest of the season, which ends in February, the last weekend of February, approximately.
Yep.
But one thing you didn't hear me talk a lot about is an actual conditioning process. And it's because I really am fortunate enough that I haven't had to rely on one. We start hunting in September, and I have an entire trailer full of dogs. So I run a couple, and then the next field, I run some fresh ones. And then the next field, I run some fresh ones. And then the next field, I run some fresh ones. And then they might cycle back through and then we're done for the day. Like it's that type of rotation. So I'm able to utilize hunting season to truly get them in all day shape. And they run, generally speaking, I bring less dogs with me based on where I'm going and how to travel that and everything else when it comes to pheasant season. So the dogs that are on the truck do get worked more, but they still have a rotation. So if you have a single dog or just a pair of dogs, you are going to have to be working the conditioning aspect of things in, which I cannot stress enough. Get an OutFox mask if you are anywhere in the Midwest or upper Midwest, especially this time of year, because grass-ons are real. So
$30 or $6,000.
Yes, /death.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very, very cheap insurance, and it's what it takes to have a dog ready. You cannot take them. I had a buddy that used to call it carpet paw. They live in the house with you, and then opening day, drop them on the ground and go, what's the matter with their feet?
It's a good way to kill a dog too.
Yeah. So you have to get them ready. You got to be able to pay attention to the signs that they're in trouble. Because you do have to be able to watch them while you're getting them ready. But it definitely is very important, especially if you are a single dog and, you're going to go on a trip. Say you're going to hit South Dakota opening day, you're going to be trying to hunt that dog all day. Especially if you're solo or just you and one other friend and you have the only dog. It's not fair to them to just drop them fresh out and just say, here, figure it out. Because, take a 2-year-old dog and they will try. They will absolutely try. And you may go, my dog's fine. And they're not. You just don't see it. It'll show up later.
Especially as temperatures are changing, climate is shifting, if you will. It's been in the upper 80s the last quite a few years, beginning part of the season, still into pheasant season. You're talking end of October. We even had days in the 80s in early November. So, I mean, you can have some really hot days.
And what's scary about those days is that usually your morning is
cool
55 and you go sweet. And then next thing you know, it's 10:30 and you're in that 5 mile from the truck going, holy cow, it is now 79 degrees. I only brought a couple bottles of water because it was so cool. And now you're in trouble.
Yeah. When I got everybody's pack mule, everybody's got water. Everybody's got water.
I tell everybody the same thing. And if I'm hunting with friends and I, for whatever reason, I only have a dog or I'm not running a dog. Say I only brought, for whatever reason, I only have 2 or 3 with me and giving them a break. I'm like full, all the water still. I got all the water you need.
I like it. Well, if you guys didn't catch our drift, roading is a very important part of developing dogs for the hunting season. I hope that this talk has helped and provided you with some insights, not only into what we do, but how to kind of make a plan for you and your dog coming into this fall. If you have other questions, you know how to reach out to us anywhere you've got social medias. It's Standing Stone Kennels. The guy with the big gun.
I'm just Charles. We'll get one someday.
We'll catch you guys in the next one.